Thank you, sir. All right. Yeah. Welcome, everyone, to our latest installment of our How to Build webinar series. So today we are going to be discussing something that, like a lot of our topics that we've discussed, it's really like a hot button issue for a lot of our customers. They're all really excited about it. But then, especially when we're onboarding new customers, everyone's like, hey, we want to use personalization, but they don't know how to get started. They don't know how to implement it. They either think too big or too small, and they're just kind of all over the place. So we've seen a lot of, customers explore this. And so we've got some thoughts on how to do it. So yeah, excited today to go over how to ship your first personalized web experience with Builder. So hi, my name is Tim Garibaldi. I am the head of customer engineering here at Builder. So I work with a lot of our largest enterprise customers and see kind of the triumphs and pitfalls across kind of the Builder feature set, including with personalization. So super excited to talk about this today. And of course, I'm joined by my colleague, Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It is going great. Thanks, Tim. Yep, product marketing manager here at Builder. A lot of what I hear is from folks who are coming to Builder, some of the things that some of the challenges they're having currently, and then also like some of the things that they want to get to. And one of those like things that we hear about quite a bit is personalization. It's like, oh, we've got this initiative for a couple months from now on personalization, or 2023 is all about personalization, or 2024 is just, we want to make sure we're ready for that. And so here we are talking about it.
Yeah, super excited.
So I think we'll cover four things today. One, the recommended approach. Oh, actually, before I jump into this, please feel free to chat, anybody leave questions in the chat, or ideally leave questions in the Q&A. Make sure that we see them. We'll answer questions along the way if we can. So yeah, please let's make this as interactive as possible. But what we'll cover is a recommended approach to shipping your first personalized web experience. Just a few minutes on like, okay, like how can you actually tactically do this? And then a demo on personalization with Builder. So actually implementing this, like if you were to walk away, what are those steps that you could take to implement this? A demo on personalization with Builder, including smart targeting, which is a feature that allows you to take your customer data platform or audiences in your customer data platform and personalize experiences for them. And then finally, we'll finish off with some questions and answers. Like I said, ask questions throughout. But then also like at the end, we can answer your questions. Yeah.
Sounds good.
And let's get into it. The recommended approach to shipping your first personalized web experience. So why would we want to ship a personalized web experience? Well, companies that personalize, they earn more revenue. Stat from McKinsey, on average, 10 to 15% increase in revenue from personalization initiatives. Whenever I see stats like this, I'm always like a little bit skeptical. I'm like, okay,
right.
Show me the data, or like, how'd you get this? Or was it like a survey of just like a bunch of executives saying like, 10 to 15%. But I think one thing that we can all probably agree on is that we have very little time with visitors that come to our site, and we need to make the most of it. We need to optimize the little time that we have. So just like one example, I think we can all kind of imagine that when we go to a site, we skim it. On average, 20% of text on a page is read. But so one of the reasons to ship a personalized web experience, yes, we ultimately want to increase revenue. We believe probably you will, but also like we just want to make the most out of every single interaction with our customers or visitors. We've got one objective today. It's to ship one personalized web experience. So it's very, very tightly scoped. So why did we scope it so specifically to one personalized web experience instead of saying like how to ship personalized omni-channel, cross-functional, personalization initiatives? It's because we want you to actually walk away with this and do it and implement it in your business. We wanted to give really tactical steps and as many shortcuts as possible, while still doing something effective to launch this. Do you have any kind of context here from what you've seen from customers and before?
No, just, I think kind of like what you were saying, and this is true across a lot of our functionality. A lot of customers come in and they have these grand visions, like, oh, I'm going to personalize everything, and they get super excited. And then, you dive in and you have to juggle how many resources you have, and all these new initiatives coming up. And so it's always good to kind of start small and dip your feet in and see, like, hey, maybe just start with one block or one page. And then you can kind of figure out how it works, what's working, what's not, and really grow from there. We see that a lot, and it definitely has become our recommended pattern, both for personalization and also, localization, A/B testing. A lot of the functionality, it's really good to kind of ease into and familiarize yourself with, and then you can really start to expand. And like once you're comfortable, you can go crazy with it.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the things that I think is really special about Builder, both as a technology and also as like kind of the services that you help customers with, is how pragmatic we are. And I think, like, just like you're saying, like, this is a really pragmatic approach to getting this out there.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, like building momentum for this initiative, understanding like the real blockers. Like if you actually do it and you go through it, you can understand like what's like, what are the tools that you need? Maybe you already have all of them. I think the biggest one you'll probably understand is like, what are the workflows? Like how much effort does this take? So that when you then move on to predict like the ROI of what's this initiative gonna result in, like there's that top level, whatever percent increase in revenue, but also like how much effort does this take from your team? And by shipping your first, you can start to kind of estimate that.
Right.
So
exactly.
100% aligned. Today we have 5 recommendations for shipping one personalized web experience, and we're very tightly scoped. Tell you what they all are, and then we're going to dig into each pretty quickly, and then we can get to the demo and show you like, okay, let's start doing this. One, Tim was talking about a second ago, like just start small. 2, use audiences that you already have. 3, measure results efficiently, the keyword here being efficiently. 4, set the right expectations when you're doing this. And then 5, consider core web vitals. We'll dive into each of these. Number 1, start small. So what's an example of starting small? At 1 page instead of 10 pages or 100 pages or entire like customer journey, which we'll get there 100%. Like as a lot of personalization initiatives are an entire customer journey, like across channels even. But let's start small. Let's scope it to 1 page instead of 10 pages. Another example of starting small is just create a few variations for a few audiences. 3 variations. Maybe you pick 2 niches and then everybody else gets the main experience, instead of 100 variations, which I think you've probably seen teams have gotten to this, right? Have gotten to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have, one of our greatest examples, we have a use case on our site, or a case study, Everlane, an early builder customer. They started, small with their personalization, and they've gotten very sophisticated to where at some points they've had, hundreds of variations of their homepage based on gender and region and, user profile and with scheduling and all this stuff. So yeah, you can, the sky is definitely the limit.
100%. Got to start somewhere though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so start small. Recommendation number 2 is use audiences you already have. So what do we mean by this? So you may already be collecting data that's in your website for your personalized web experience. I'll give you a very quick example of what I mean by this. At Builder, if you're a developer and you come to Builder.io and you go to our documentation and you select that you are a Next.js developer because you want to see Next.js code snippets, well, we save in a cookie that you're a Next.js developer. And the reason we do that today is that every time you come to the documentation, we serve up the proper documentation for you. You see code and context. But that also tells us a few other things. So say, as Builder, we want to personalize our headless CMS page for developers versus marketers, because we don't really know, that page kind of serves 2 audiences. Well, if we know that you're a Next.js developer, we know that you're a developer, and we can basically personalize that page using that data that already exists today. So we can kind of reuse what exists today. Now, this is as opposed to creating, like segmenting all of your customers into 5 cohorts, which you might have, and that's amazing. but oftentimes it's a major initiative. And you should absolutely get there. But for this very first, shipping your first personalized web experience, see if there's already data that you have today that you can start personalizing with. So you can build momentum, start to understand the processes, the workflows, the investment, so that you can kind of scale this program.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I talked about this briefly, like you may already have like lots of this data. So we, at Builder, that gave the example of like, oh, we're already storing it in cookies. Maybe you don't do that already today, but maybe you do also have like a customer data platform or marketing platform that has some of this customer data in it, like Segment or Telium or Simon or some that we see with our customers. And that's great. Let's use data that you already have today. Let's not have to create something crazy or go into a business intelligence tools, create perfect cohorts with data science. Again, get there. It's really important. Something, should absolutely do, but this is shipping our first. Recommendation number 3 is measure results efficiently. I kind of alluded to this earlier about measuring results efficiently. And so what I mean by this is like an example of like, let's measure click-through rates. We have one page, we've got 3 variations. Which one performs best in a click-through? Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of holes you can poke in this, right? Any sophisticated data science team will absolutely poke holes like, oh, okay, did that drive actually average revenue per user attributed to this personal experience? How can you come back to that? That's absolutely where she get, but today is about shipping your first personalized web experience. So how can you measure results most efficiently? One is kind of scope it to like measure the click-through rate with a hypothesis. Let's use Google Analytics, which we're already using today on our website. Or let's use like the built-in Builder analytics that tracks click-through rates on different pages. Like, let's keep it relatively scoped, but also we do need to measure this.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, again, it's similar to like start small and be realistic. Not every test is going to be like 100% or that 10-15% revenue change, but figuring out like where you're getting the most ROI on different changes and things and personalizations is going to be key.
Thank you, Jaideep, for the question. There's a quick question in Q&A. Can we please show something like a very simple flow on a high level to build an app? And with using Superbase, Builder, and Vercel. I think today we're kind of scoping this to a personalized web experience for like an e-commerce, something we see customers use quite a bit today, like e-commerce or a marketing site or something along those lines. Is there kind of a resource that you'd recommend, Tim, for showing, a simple flow for building a web app?
I mean, for building just like from scratch a web app, we have a lot of starters from Builder that you can just spin up very, very quickly, which is going to be great. I mean, some of them even have personalization built into it. We also have a new playground. I think it's playground.builder.io or builder.io/playground, where you can, it's basically a code sandbox that has a deployed instance of Builder. And you can start playing around with like examples of building out, you working with our SDKs and stuff like that. And then again, and going back to kind of those starters, a lot of them have kind of Vercel one-click deployment, or can be easily deployed to, Netlify or whoever else. Tons of options.
Thank you. Yeah, feel free to keep the answers, the questions coming. Recommendation to set the right expectations for this, shipping our first personalized web experience. Kind of connecting to what we were just saying a moment ago. Let's say we're going to see a 10 to 15% increase in click-through rate, as opposed to, and we're going to learn how to scale this program, what we need, the risks and expectations that we can expect to see, as opposed to we're going to see a 10 to 15% increase in company revenue right off the bat. You absolutely might see a 10 to 15% increase in revenue right off the bat. But I think what we're recommending with starting small, understanding the workflows, using data you already have, we're here to learn and kind of ship our first personalized web experience so that we can then hopefully scale this to get to those overall 10 to 15% increase in revenue. So I've kind of given a few kind of shortcuts we can take to ship this first personalized web experience. A shortcut that I would consider not taking is something that could harm performance or could harm core web vitals. So for those not familiar, there are 3 core web vitals. Largest contentful paint, which is basically what's the largest thing on the page, how long does that take to load? If it takes a really long time to load, Google says, oh, that's a poor experience. Compared to another page that has the same content but takes no time to load, that they'll likely rank that other page a little bit higher. Another core web vital is cumulative layout shift, which is if you've ever been to a website and an image pops up and it kind of shifts things around, Google says that's maybe not the best experience because you might click on something accidentally, a lot of flickers in the eyes. Isn't a great experience. So that's something to consider too as you are architecting this first personalized web experience. Wouldn't necessarily skip out on these.
Definitely.
So we've given you kind of 5 tactics. We'll write these all down. We'll send them out. But let's get into it. Let's demo this thing and show you how it works in real life.
Cool. Yeah, let me take the screen share here. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, we're going to use some of those kind of tips that Mike brought up and kind of walk through a demo of how you can set up different ways of using personalization within Builder. We have this kind of example e-commerce page, very simple, just a single page for selling shoes. And we're going to walk through some different methods you can use, right? So we're going to start small, like we said, using maybe some like block level personalization, and then expand into entire like page level personalization, and then touch on a new feature that we have with Builder called smart targeting, which is really exciting, and I'm pretty excited to get into. So, okay, so we have this page. It's a deployed website, but I actually have it running on my local as well. I'm going to go ahead and use our Builder Chrome plugin to jump into the space, which is a really awesome tool. Highly recommend everyone download that if you don't have it already. Let me see. It will jump you into any Builder content, any sections that are built within Builder right here. So now I'm going to go ahead and jump to that page that we were just on. I jumped into the nav by mistake. But you can see here, okay, we have this page, right? So one of the things that we talked about, and then I also have my code running right here, right? So one of the things that we talked about earlier is using the data that you already have available within your app, right? So a very common use case Mike also already talked about, like, using cookies, or if you have user interactions. A lot of customers, especially like e-commerce sites, let's say maybe you'll have users that log in, and so you'll have access to user data, right? So within my app, I already have some helper functions that get the user info for a user, right? So we're going to go ahead, grab that user info, set it to this user object, right? So get user info here. And I'm going to go ahead. This is also I'm using a Next.js, one of our spin-ups, one of the starters that I referred to, but the kind of methods here apply to all of our SDKs and like any framework really that you can integrate Builder with, because that's one of our core tenets, is that you really can integrate Builder with any web app. So I'm going to go ahead and console log what I have available here, just to get a sense of what we're working with, right? So we have a user that hits the page, they're logged in. And so when they log in, let's see, okay, we have user data, we have their username and their interests. So this is a pretty common practice. Like at Builder, I know when you log in and set up your user, you have to just say like, I'm a developer, a designer, or an executive or something like that. Maybe for this e-commerce shoe company, they say kind of what their interests are. So we can see we have the username and this person's interested in running. So we have some data available, and we can, now that we have that data in our app, we can pass it into Builder and then start using that data to kind of manipulate content on the page, which is really cool. So I have this user. to pass data from your app into Builder, all you have to do is on the kind of client component. We have Builder component here, and a lot of our SDKs, it's called render content. All you do is pass that data into the data prop. So we go user, passing in that user object. And now you'll see in the data tab here, we have that user data coming through, right? And if you're familiar with Builder, if you've used Builder before, you know that the way you can add and manipulate data on the page is through state. So that's what we have here, right? So for example, we know that this user is interested in running. Now we can come in here and maybe, personalize this title, right? So we have this, our title is currently most desirable shoe ever. We can go ahead, we can edit a binding. I'm going to do a custom code data binding. And you can say maybe, how about instead of our most durable shoe ever, we can make it a string literal and say our state.user.interest. Oops, not save. There we go. Cool. Now we should see, okay, on our page, we're able to personalize to that user's interest, right? And then in my database, let's say I come in here, I'm going to update, maybe this user's interest is hiking. It's going to render on the page and show. So now already they're more engaged. They're, we're more aligned with their interests. This is really, really useful. And as you can see, pretty straightforward, very easy. And this can be applied to anything, right? So let's say they're a return customer, VIP customer. You can use this data to do anything, right? So like if you want to, let's say, hide this button if the user is interested in running, or if the user is a VIP or something like that, you can really, really go wild and kind of personalize all of your experiences. This is kind of what we call block level or component level personalization. So it's using data available in your app to affect the components that you're rendering on the page, right? That's great. Now, what if you want to kind of get a little more sophisticated? What if you want like an entirely different experience for, or you have you want all of the components to be different and you want to be able to track all of the pages a little differently, right? That's kind of what we talked about. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. So let's say instead of just changing the headline, we actually want to have completely different pages that are targeted to all of our different customers. So for that, once you start getting on the entry level customization, personalization, that's where we start using our targeting attributes. Our targeting attributes, you can see the targeting for content up here. And this is a bit of a different flow. And the way we go ahead and set this up is, so we know that our users have an interest, and we want to pass that from your app into Builder and target off of that. So in order to set this up, we're going to go into our account settings, custom targeting attributes. And you can see, if you watched our webinar on localization, it's kind of a lot of similarities there. You can see this is where we set up the locale. We're going to go ahead and define our different targeting attributes. So this one was called interest. And the name, the value is basically a string and just has to match the string value that you're passing to Builder from your application. So in this case, we're going to make it a string, and we know what the values are. So we're going to make some enumerated values. It's going to be running, hiking, I don't know, CrossFit, whatever the case may be. We'll go ahead and save that. Now, when we go into our content, we can start targeting this content here based on our interests, right? These show up as targeting attributes. So we have this, and let's say we want this to be targeted to our hiking users, right? Go ahead and publish that. But then we also want to create a version that's for, say, runners, right? We'll go ahead, duplicate this content, or you can start from fresh. It's just nice to duplicate because we have a lot of the same stuff here. And now what I'm going to do is update that targeting to be pointed to runners, right? And then from here, maybe we change this image to How about this? Cool. This text is already pulling in that interest from there. So we could hard code this text, or we can keep it using this dynamic data binding. Also keep in mind this dynamic data binding with this code, like you can be as sophisticated as you want. So you can kind of add and combine things. This is just a JavaScript window. So if you wanted to have, if statements or complicated, whatever, you can do that here as well. So now we've got this. Okay, so we have for this URL, interest is running. It's going to show this page. Now we have at that URL, interest is hiking. We'll show the other page. Awesome. So let's go ahead and let's come to the live page and see where we're at. Okay, so we're getting the hiking shoe and the hiking page. Wait, suddenly we're not getting anything. Why is that? Oh, well, first off, it's because we need to pass it from our application into Builder. So we generated those targeting attributes, and now we need to pass them from application into Builder. And the way we do that is our user attributes, right? So in here, we can come in and say, we have interest is user.interest. So now, we're passing our user attributes to this API call. Builder's going to take these, see if they match up with the targeting attributes on our content, and choose which content to serve. So we come here, now we're seeing the hiking page again, which is great. You can see, so this is with the interest of hiking. If I update the interest in our database, let's say this is now a runner. If we refresh the page, we're getting the running page. Let's say the person is into cycling, right? Refresh the page. Suddenly we're not getting anything. This is something important to kind of remember when setting up targeting in Builder, is that if you have targeted content, you want to make sure to always have a catch-all page at the bottom as well that will make sure that you have something for those people that don't meet those targeting attributes, right? So for example, we have this page with no targeting attributes at that same URL. We're going to go ahead and publish this to make sure we have that catch-all. And then when we come back here, it might take a second, but you'll see this. And so the way to think about it, right, is that when your application says, hey, Builder, calls Builder and says, give me a page content for this URL. It's going to go through and say, okay, the user attributes that are passed in, do they meet the minimum of these targeting attributes? If yes, it'll serve that content. If no, it'll move down to the next one. So the order is really important. You want the targeted content listed higher up and above the untargeted content. So now that it should be going through.
This is kind of one of the things I love about these live demos, is like, this is the stuff that folks will actually run into, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think this is the kind of stuff that's like so useful.
Yeah. So then, now if I change, that user interest to cycling, we don't have a page for it. They're still getting content. If we change it to, yoga. Cool. And again, you can still personalize because we're passing that data in. So you can, if we personalize this text to, have that the user interest in, everyone's getting a personalized page or some personalized content, but then maybe our higher return customers, our hikers, our runners, right? They have like a much different experience that we know is going to drive conversions, or we know, this is what they want to see, or whatever the case may be, right? So again, we didn't have to create any functions to get all this fancy information. It was all stuff we had available in our application, which is really, really cool. So now the last thing that I definitely wanted to make sure we cover is also this new feature that I was talking about, which is called smart targeting. So a lot of our customers, especially enterprise customers, smart targeting is currently an enterprise only feature. A lot of them have a CDP, they have some sort of marketing or customer management platform, right? And so you might want, you're going to want to utilize that when building these targeted experiences in Builder, right? So I have another helper function, right? We can say like user segment info, and it's going to say, so I'm going to call this helper function that we have that's getting our user data from, segment, from Looker, from whoever, right? Let's go ahead and go in here, user segment info. I'm going to console log this just to see with what we're working with. Refresh the page. Okay, so this user, profile VIP, and VIP hopefully is going to be spelled correctly. There we go. In the Midwest, we've assigned them to a cohort, they're male. So now we have all this information. Again, we can start targeting off of this. And what's really great is with this new smart targeting feature, you don't have to predefine everything, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and pass in user segment info, this entire object of customer data that we have access to. I'm going to have to actually go into Builder and turn on this feature first called smart targeting under advanced settings, labs. We have smart targeting. I'm going to turn on full. And now what smart targeting does is we have something watching your user attributes that you're sending to our API. And it says every attribute that you send, we capture it and we make it available as a targeting attribute. So now if we go to here and we add targeting, you'll see these that have this little clock. This is saying that it's auto detected from logs, and it's going to populate it with some features. Now, this is a space that we just built for this demo, and so it hasn't populated these user attributes. It's a cron job that runs every day or something like that, so they aren't in real time. But once you start passing them, and as you start demoing them and developing them, they will start showing up. So you can see here, like we have one that's capturing the cities from different users, or maybe product handles that get passed in. So the use of this is that you don't, or like the beauty of this is that now, let's say you have segment and you're segmenting your users, and you can define those segments in segment, and your app is automatically dynamically pulling that, based on the APIs and how you have it set up, and it's automatically going to get passed and funneled into Builder. And now within Builder, you have access to that to start targeting off of and start building experiences off of. You don't have to go in, if we have cohorts and there's 100 different cohorts, you don't have to go in and predefine them in your targeting attributes. So it's kind of unlocking even more power, giving you more power in your CDP to like define what your groups are, and it'll automatically go into Builder, which is really, really cool.
I feel like that helps answer one of the questions we've got, which is so can you do programmatic programming? Can you show a no-code way to do personalization? I feel like that this is actually like basically it's one line, right? You just added in, you kind of took the object coming from your customer data platform and you pass it in as attribute. And then that kind of enables the rest of the team to be able to do this like in a no code way, like you've been showing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So once this is set up, now you can handle everything directly within Builder in a no code fashion. I mean, there has to be some initialization, right? To be able to pass data in between Builder and your app and whatever else. But it's definitely, you can set it up to be more of a set it and forget it kind of thing, which is great. And if you don't want to get every single, user attribute that you pass in, you can also set it to be predefined attributes only. So that's basically, if you were to look at our custom attributes, it would take these custom attributes that we have and pass in any values. And so it would add new values to it without adding new, attribute kind of classes themselves. So that's pretty cool too.
I think, and if we could take one more question, because I think it's a good question. It's one that we've talked about at Builder somewhat extensively. How does this work with static site generation, ISR, edge, server side? Because it's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you're passing in so for Next.js, for example, if we're doing this, if you've generated a new page for each each targeted version of the page, it'll statically generate all of those pages, and it will take into account the user attributes. And so that will all render server side. If you're passing data in, there's going to be a little bit like that part is going to get updated on the client side. And so if you're also targeting off of, let's say, a cookie or something that is only like on the client, you would have to like add, maybe since we're in React and in Next.js, you would add a use effect and update the content based on that cookie. So there is some consideration as to what are you going to have server side rendered, what you're going to have client side rendered, and how you want to affect that personalization. But it is going to be pretty highly performant either way. And you can see, so if we go to,
we've also got like a starter on personalizing on the edge.
Yes.
We've also got, I think Steve did a webinar on that before.
Yeah. And it is pre-generating. So if I change this to running, so it is generating these pages with that data, pre-generating it as well. But yeah, so yeah, definitely. And then using the edge personalization middleware is going to be really helpful too if you are able to implement that for cookies or client side kind of query param targeting, stuff like
that. The last question we have is, this is blowing me away. Thank you.
I agree, anonymous attendee. No, it's super powerful. And a lot of people, like we said, you can start small and then really go crazy with it. And have, all kinds of experiences and multiple kind of experiences within, so for example, right, like we have this running page and this hiking page, but we also have access to if this person's a VIP. So maybe we can have a badge here that says, like, if you're a VIP, like here's a 10% discount or something like that, right? So you can really start like adding a bunch of features and on top of each other, and it's going to give you tons of flexibility and functionality. Yeah, we love seeing the cool stuff that people do with it.
So I think that's what we planned to cover today, right? I think we did recommended approach. We did a demo of personalization with Builder. You showed off how to personalize with data from a customer data platform, like Segment or something like that, Tilium. And now, so we've answered some questions. We got one more question, actually, and please feel free to submit some more questions. Can we build complex web apps using Builder.io?
Yeah, absolutely. So Builder can integrate into any application. And if that application is super complex and sophisticated, you can plug in Builder and start adding to it with Builder immediately. If you're starting with one of our starters that has just like very thin, like single page development, or like a single page setup where you're just creating marketing pages or landing pages, within those landing pages, you can create full code components within Builder using symbols. You can do everything like, the sky is honestly the limit. I would say. Builder, one of the things, it's kind of similar to in this demo, right? Like you have all this data available in your app already. Why not use it to personalize? Like Builder will meet your app where it's at and be able to build on top of it, right? So whether you're just starting out with like a small starter, you can start implementing things with Builder and building up. Whether it's already this huge sophisticated app, you can find a way to slot in Builder in section models or symbols or headers or footers, whatever the case may be. So yeah, lots of flexibility.
I can think about one example too. I'm pretty sure, keep me honest here, I'm pretty sure there's portions of the Builder.io web app that are Builder components. And the reason we selected that is so we can quickly kind of iterate them. Marketing team like me can go in and update, certain onboarding things, stuff. So 100%.
Yeah, our entire marketing and docs sites, everything's all built within Builder. And then yeah, sections of our application have Builder components in it as well. So it scales from, like you said, wherever you're at.
The last, as another good example of this that you can watch, I'll plug. There's a webinar that Steve at Builder did a couple of weeks ago, where he did a composable commerce site, where he brought in like these code components from Algolia, like personalized recommendations, and he brought in all sorts of stuff and stuck them together, which I would 100% consider like a very complex, like super enterprise app that he builds in like maybe like 20 minutes.
Totally.
So I would check that out. Takes configuration, of course, to get to that point, but yeah.
And then we had one last question. Is there a way to do iOS, Android applications? There's ways that you can use our current like web components and HTML to inject HTML into that, but then we are looking into and currently building out some more native SDKs as well. So absolutely in the future, and there's ways to figure it out now as well. So more to come.
And then I think the last answer we've got, last question I see so far, feel free to submit any others, we've got some minutes left, is can I build a web app completely from scratch using Builder.io?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much you can. Again, I would recommend using like maybe a basic starter. We don't handle the like deployment and hosting. So that's something that you would have to figure out. Again, there's plenty of like very quick, like one-click deployment options for Cell and Netlify and whoever else. But pretty much, I mean, you definitely, like I said, I think our Builder like marketing and docs pages is all 100% in Builder with a little functionality built into the app as well. But yeah, it's definitely it's definitely possible. But of course, the more dev resources you have to be able to like build around it is going to help as well too. So it just kind of depends on your use case and what you need to do. So
a lot of questions on web apps today. I think you answered this one live, which was iOS, Android native. So that looks like all the questions we have for today. This has been awesome. Every time I see it, it's like there's more stuff that I learn about different ways to personalize and just making it as flexible as you need it to be, especially when you're shipping your first personalized web experience. Like whatever workflow makes the most sense for that, you can learn, iterate, and hopefully ship many more in the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you all for joining, and thank you, Tim. This is always great. I learned so much, and we will see y'all at the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everyone. And have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.